How much are you sacrificing when it comes to money in lieu of your happiness today? Maybe you're in a position where you'd like to retire sooner. Maybe you're in a position where you're spending less today in order to retire at a certain point in the future at a sooner date. Maybe you're in a position in retirement where you're not spending as much because you don't want to run out of money because you want to spend more later. There's all types of ways that we have to measure our money and how it relates to our happiness. Today, our topic is investing for money versus investing for happiness.
Let's get into the content, buddy. Here we're sharing a blog post from Katie. Katie Tassin has a blog called Money with Katie. She does some good work. I've read many of her articles. She does a good way of relating, especially to women in finance, and does a lot of topics centered around I call this sci-fi.
I was kind of surprised I wasn't real familiar with Money with Kate, but there's a lot of good stuff here.
This is sci-fi, man. This is psychological finance, sci-fi.
I like it, sci-fi. But that money is psychological, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we forget that over time. Most often over time, right? Usually most of us, when we're first stepping in, we're starting to save. We're saving for something, right? We're saving for that
There's
car.
a goal.
Yeah, we want to get a car. I know when I was a kid, I wanted to get a wakeboard, right? I wanted to get a wakeboard, so I'd save for that. I had a little envelope. I'd put that money in there, and I was saving for that wakeboard because I knew that wakeboard would give me happiness out on the wake. I would save for wedges because I knew I could I had a golf hand-me-down Titleist,
golf wedges,
not wedgies, an old Titleist wedge that was handed down to me, and I wanted to get a Cleveland wedge, and so I'd save up for that because I knew that'd make me play better on the course, and it would just bring me more happiness.
The gunmetal ones,
loved them. They were so cool, and the whole what happens throughout our lives though is I think we are always saving for these things that are very near in the beginning part of our lives. We're saving for that wakeboard. We're saving for that BB gun. We're saving for that
bike.
The bike. Whatever it is, we're saving for something very specific that's not too far in the future. And then we're saving for a car. Then we're saving for a house. And at some point, we start saving for retirement.
Yeah. Wealth.
And all of a sudden, the happiness that we're going to receive from that saving, that diligent, focused, responsible saving habit that we've created, now we're not going to receive it for decades into the future.
Delayed gratification.
We start saving at 25 years old. We may be saving for something we're not going to experience for 40 years.
Right.
And I think over that 40-year time horizon, we kind of forget what it was all for. It was all to get to this point in the future where we would have more happiness in our lives. And we start kind of holding on to the money over time, that by the time we get to be 65, now it's become more about the money than it was the happiness.
Yes.
And it's important for us at that point in our lives to remember what we were saving for in the first place. And I want to get to how I want to incorporate this algorithm that Kate came up with, if you'll call it that. Okay?
Yeah.
This function, this equation that she came up with for happiness. I think it's missing some elements as it applies to a retiree. But before we get into that, I want to kind of talk about her, what happens along the way, and for those of you that are still saving for retirement.
Yeah, and I think we see this a lot with those individuals that are trying to reach financial independence, maybe early, the FIRE movement folks. Maybe they're living on half of their income.
She's giving an extreme example.
Giving an extreme example. But Casey, I've seen this firsthand. I've seen this from individuals that they started saving for a goal, and then it became more about the accumulation of wealth than it really was about enjoying the money along the way. And then they got into retirement, and they never learned or taught themselves how to spend or enjoy the fruits of their labor, and then they end up passing away, and they never got to enjoy the money when they were saving it or making it. They never got to enjoy it later in life in retirement, and that's what we don't want to see. We want to see the balance there.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting just to apply a happiness quotient, if you will, a number to the degree of happiness maybe you're experiencing today on your way to retirement. And once you reach and maybe it's not retirement in the traditional sense, maybe it's just job optional, right? You get to a place where you have financial independence, you're job optional, maybe you're still working or not, but what kind of happiness is that going to bring? And apply a scale of 1 to 10. So in the example that Kate is offering here, she's talking about a gal that's saving about half of her income, so making $5,000 a month, saving $2,500 a month. And this applies, it doesn't matter, the numbers are irrelevant. Making $20,000 a month or whatever you're saving 20%, 10%, it really doesn't matter. It's really, at the end of the day, is really thinking about the degree of happiness it's bringing to you. So now this particular individual, in saving these dollars, let's say that, for saving $2,500 a year, maybe that baseline happiness is a 7, right? So I'm saving $2,500. I'm forgoing some things. And I
feel like my number would be lower than that.
Right now, currently?
I mean, at that point, I feel like my happiness quotient would be much lower, I think.
Oh, well, no, yes.
My baseline would be like a 5.
Okay, I was worried about you for a second. Okay, so we're talking about, yes, I would agree. I mean, I think you're living bare bones at $2,500 a month, especially if you have a kid. But there's a lot of people out there that do this, right? Absolutely. And especially in this FIRE movement. And that's one of the biggest problems with the FIRE movement is you're sacrificing so much life for something that may never actually happen at the end of the life anyways. So she's making the estimate that right now, let's say this gal is experiencing a 7 every day right now. So she's experiencing a happiness quotient of 7, saving $2,500 a month. And she's assuming, hey, I'll probably be 20% happier when I hit financial independence. So let's say I go from a 7 to a 9. I think that's reasonable for all people, right? I'm a 7 today because I'm making some sacrifices. I'll be a 9 down the road. And the question would be, what could I do to make that 7 and 8? What would it really cost to increase my happiness today? And sometimes it doesn't take that much. Maybe it's just the coffee that you've been, old David Bach, the latte factor, right?
Latte
saying,
effect.
hey, if you sacrifice that latte every day, you'll be able to retire 5 years sooner. Whatever, I don't know the exact numbers.
Well, but that's the happiness sacrifice lever, right? You're trying to figure out how to pull it, how much to pull it, how little to pull it, or how much more you can pull.
And you have to weigh these things. Like if this gal just got the latte every morning and showed up to work just a little bit later, maybe that gives her a 10% boost in her happiness quotient. Maybe that takes her from a 7 to an 8, right? And what's that going to do to her retirement date? If she is saving if she's spending $2,500 a month, well then she's going to have $750,000 roughly to be financially independent, ignoring inflation, raises, all that stuff. We're just giving simple numbers here. So if I'm saving half of my income, spending $2,500 a month, I need $750,000 to be financially independent. And now let's say that she spends a little bit, right? A little bit on cleaning services, maybe a little bit on coffee, maybe a nice lunch out during the week, once a week. And now she's getting 10% more happiness, and that's costing her $470 a month
in savings.
Yeah. So now she's actually spending that $470 instead of saving the $470. So she's spending about 19% more a month to enjoy some little luxuries along the way. What impact did that make? Now that pushed her need from $750,000 to $891,000 because she is now spending more. She's going to have
happier.
More saved.
She wants to maintain that lifestyle in retirement.
And that pushed her financially independent point in time which she reaches it from 15 years to 18 years. Really, again, it's all hypothetical. It's all philosophy here.
You can apply it to your life, though.
Yeah, so that pushes her from years of 15 years to be financially independent to an 18. So maybe that takes her a happiness level from 7 to 8 today and still gives her a 9 down the road. The question being, would you rather have a 7 level of happiness for 15 years and then jump to a 9? or an 8 for 18 years before hitting a 9. I also want to add in there, we also often overestimate how happy financial independence will make us and how much that'll really change our lives.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies now that are starting
once we get the money.
Once we get the money and get to the independence, then start living this life, a lot of times individuals find that they're not quite as happy as they thought they were going to be. But that kind of begs the question, she lists here, Casey, a few questions to ask yourself, and it's kind of back to, knowing your numbers, right? Knowing how much you need on a monthly basis, how much do you spend, and how much more would you need to spend to truly feel like you're raising that happiness quotient? Is it 10%? Is it 20%? What can you do to maybe have some better balance there?
If you'd like to take the information that you've gleaned here to the next level, all you have to do is this. Click the link in the description and schedule a 15-minute phone consultation with an advisor on our team where you can get answers to your own unique questions and concerns. Well, as I started thinking about this, I go, I think it's missing something. There's an element that's missing from the equation. There should be a function of age, especially as it pertains to retirees.
Yeah,
right?
There you go.
Yeah, but let's take an example. So I whiteboarded a little example prior to this, and it said, okay, so let's say that I can afford to spend $80,000 a year for the rest of my life. I'm 60 years old. I can spend $80,000 a year for the rest of my life. So just keep it simple here. So I'm going to spend $80,000 a year for the rest of my life. Or I could spend $90,000 a year from the age of 60 to 80. So I can spend a little bit more, and then that's going to reduce how much I can spend later. Maybe now I can only spend $70,000 a year from 80 plus. Well, why would doesn't it make sense to have a boost? Doesn't it make sense to have a boost to that factor, an augmentation of that factor that we're spending at a younger age? We're more physically able, we're more vibrant, more energetic. We have more things that we want to do. There's more things that we're capable of doing. We have family that we're with. We may not have the spouse that we're with today 20 years from now. We just have, I think, a factor to apply. Maybe we can enjoy the dollars today 20% more than we can when we're 80. From 60 to 80, we're going to apply this happiness factor, this little boost of 20% to that number. And if I'm only spending $80,000 a year, at $80,000 a year, I'm pretty happy. I'm a factor of 8, right? So my happiness factor is an 8 the rest of my life. Alternatively, if I'm spending at $90,000 a year, I got a factor of 9. I'm real happy spending at a factor of 9. Now, if I'm spending at $70,000, I'm knocking down. I'm enjoying about a 7. Yeah, that's my happiness factor at a 7. And so then I think we can apply this age boost, if you will. So let's say that factor when I'm 60 spending these dollars is 20% more enjoyment out of the money versus when I'm 85, right? So if we're 60, we might initially look at spending that as, well, when I am 60 and I am spending at this level of $80,000 a year, I'm getting an 8 out of those dollars. But if I'm applying this 20% increase in my enjoyment, effectively I'm getting a 10.6 on a happiness factor out of those dollars. And at age 80, I am going to now, I'm getting a 7 instead of an 8 because I'm going to be spending a little bit less. I'm going to spend $70,000 instead of $80,000, so I'm going to get a 7. I lose a little bit of my happiness factor and I don't have a boost. But man, the differential, the alpha of that age factor getting calculated in there, I think makes us think a little bit more about when and how we want to spend this money. If one option is we can be a happiness factor of 8 at our spending level the rest of our lives. Alternatively, we could be in a position where we spend at a level of 9 and enjoy 9 for the next 20 years and then 7 the rest of our lives. I don't know, 9 and 7, maybe that's not that big of a deal. Should I consider this or not? Well, then apply the age factor. The difference is really enjoying it at a 10.6 today and then going to a 7. Yeah, that's a big deal. And that makes you reconsider your spending strategy. Yeah, absolutely. I just had a conversation with a family that I work with on the East Coast. We were just having a Zoom the other day. I think Casey popped in the window. We'll call them Rob and Karen. Rob and Karen having a review. We're talking about how much they need to spend, and the number, let's call it $6,000 a month, was their number right now with the lifestyle that they're living and doing the things that they want to do. And we're building an income strategy, and we're looking at different ways of doing that. Well, they said,
it works really well, right? They had enough money. It was going to work well. The required rate of return was only 3%. Everything looked great. But we started looking at the numbers, and if we ran out to their life expectancy of 90 and 95, it looked like they were going to leave about $1 million behind to heirs. And he said, Marshall, that's really not our goal. What if we could improve our happiness maybe for the next 20 years and get a different home with maybe a little bit more land? We're kind of homebodies, and we wouldn't need to travel then if we had maybe our permanent residence was kind of like a vacation, right? And so we repurposed and we reconfigured their income plan to see if that was feasible. And it turns out it was. Now they're going to sacrifice something, right? They're going to sacrifice leaving a bigger legacy, but now they're not leaving so much as retirement assets. It's more in real estate. I think this is the conversation that should be happening with families as they're building a retirement plan. And they're really trying to look at, okay, what brings us happiness? How does that relate to our wealth? And how do we structure our income to elevate our happiness?
Yeah. Well, I think, and we can also look at this at a different time. So if you're trying to determine what your retirement date is, and I won't run you through all the math again, but if you're saying, well, I could retire today at age 60 and I'm going to have a happiness level of 8 because my ability to spend, but if I wait 5 more years, let's say I wait 10 more years. So if I retire at 70, now I'm going to be more financially independent. I can spend at a level that is a 9. Is it really worth the sacrifice?
Sure.
And again, apply that age factor. So I hope you find value in this conversation. Share it with your friends. Don't forget to rate, review the podcast. And of course, check out retirewithpurpose.com. You can get a link to the show notes there and get yourself signed up for this weekly email. Welcome to the Retire with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Casey Weade, where it is my mission to help deliver clarity in purpose and elevate meaning in your financial life through personal and practical financial strategies. We do that here on the podcast. If you're new, in a couple of different ways. Every other Monday, we deliver to you a world-class guest. A lot of those conversations are on the non-financial side of finance and retirement. Every single Friday, Marshall Johnson and myself, we get together here with you on these Fridays to cover a weekend reading article with you that is a trending topic in the world of finance. That could be financial, it could be non-financial in nature, but it's all designed to impact your bottom line. What is weekend reading? Well, that's an email that we send out every single Friday. Our team, we go out, we sift through all the garbage that's out there on the internet to find you some of those diamonds in the rough. We find 4 of them, we put them in that email, we deliver them to you on Friday to give you some weekend reading material on all types of different topics. But not only are you getting that great information, but you're also getting all types of other goodies. You have to receive this. You're going to get a webinar invitations. You're going to receive live event invitations. You're going to receive book giveaways, all types of great stuff. And one of the things that I love about our weekend reading subscribers, you love to ask great questions. And we always reach out to you prior to our interviews to have you submit questions to us for me to bring into those interviews with our guests. And if you've never signed up for weekend reading before, we're going to send you a free digital copy of my Wall Street Journal bestseller, Job Optional at No Cost. Get yourself signed up by just shooting us a text. Text us WR, the key letters WR, to 866-482-9559. We'll get you signed up. And please don't forget to rate the podcast, review the podcast. Marshall and I, we're always jumping in. We're always reading these reviews. I look at it every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, because I love to get your feedback. So please give us some stars, give us an honest rating and review that helps us provide even better content in the future and get our message out to more people.